Marcus wiped the dirt from his hands and looked at the evening sky. The twin suns of Verdancia were setting, painting the horizon in shades of orange and purple. It had been a good day in the garden. The tomatoes were growing well, and the carrots were almost ready to harvest. He walked between the rows of vegetables, checking each plant with care. This small garden was his life now. After 20 years working on cargo ships, Marcus had retired to this quiet frontier colony. Here, he could touch the soil and watch things grow. It was peaceful. It was simple. It was exactly what he needed. As Marcus bent down to pull a few weeds, he heard a sound. It was soft, like a whimper. He stopped and listened carefully. There it was again, coming from near the pumpkin patch. Marcus walked slowly toward the sound. He pushed aside the large pumpkin leaves and froze. There, curled up between two pumpkins, was a small dragon. Marcus had seen dragons before, but only from a distance. They were a proud and powerful species that kept to themselves. This dragon was different. It was small, about the size of a large dog. Its scales should have been bright and shining, but they looked dull. The little dragon was thin, very thin. Its ribs showed through its sides. The dragon child looked at Marcus with large, frightened eyes. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound. It just watched him, trembling. Marcus's heart ached. This was a child, scared and hungry. He didn't think about politics or species. He only saw someone who needed help. "Hey there, little one," Marcus said softly. He kept his voice gentle and calm. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The dragon child pressed itself further into the ground, trying to become smaller. Marcus sat down slowly, keeping some distance between them. He wanted to show he wasn't a threat. "You must be hungry," he said. "I was just about to have dinner. Would you like some?" The dragon's eyes flickered with interest, then fear again. It didn't respond. Marcus stood up carefully and walked back to his small cottage. His mind was racing. Dragons didn't usually come to human settlements. This child was clearly alone and in trouble. He should probably contact the colonial authorities. But first, the little one needed food. Inside his kitchen, Marcus looked at his dinner. He had made a large pot of vegetable stew earlier. There was fresh bread cooling on the counter. He filled a large bowl with stew and broke off half the bread. He carried it outside on a wooden tray. The dragon child was still there, watching the cottage with nervous attention. When Marcus appeared, it tensed. "I'm just bringing food," Marcus said quietly. He set the tray down about 10 feet from the dragon and stepped back. "It's vegetable stew. Carrots, potatoes, beans, tomatoes, all from the garden. The bread is fresh. Please, eat." Marcus sat down on the ground again, giving the dragon space. He waited. Minutes passed. The dragon child didn't move. Then slowly, its nose twitched. The smell of warm food was too tempting. It crawled forward, inch by inch, eyes never leaving Marcus. When it reached the tray, it sniffed carefully. Then suddenly, it began eating. It devoured the stew desperately, barely stopping to breathe. The bread disappeared in seconds. When the bowl was empty, the dragon licked it clean. Marcus smiled sadly. "You were really hungry, weren't you?" The dragon child looked at him. For a moment, Marcus saw something in those eyes, gratitude mixed with deep sadness. As darkness fell, Marcus knew he couldn't leave the child outside. "Come on," he said, standing up. "Let's get you somewhere safe for the night." He walked toward his greenhouse, a large glass structure where he started seedlings and grew plants that needed extra warmth. The dragon followed at a distance, limping slightly. Marcus noticed old scars on its legs and tail. This child had been through something terrible. Inside the greenhouse, Marcus cleared a corner. He brought clean blankets and made a soft nest. He filled a large bowl with fresh water and set it nearby. The warm air and smell of growing plants filled the space. The dragon child entered slowly, looking around with wonder. It had probably never seen a greenhouse before. "This is a safe place," Marcus said. "All I do here is help things grow. You can stay as long as you need." The dragon walked to the corner and curled up on the blankets. It rested its head on its tail, still watching Marcus. Marcus sat on an overturned bucket nearby. "I'm going to call you Ember," he said, "because your scales have a little glow to them, like embers in a fire. Is that okay?" The dragon, Ember, blinked slowly. It was the closest thing to a response Marcus would get. "Well, Ember, you're safe now," Marcus said gently. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do." Marcus left the greenhouse door open so Ember wouldn't feel trapped. He went back to his cottage but didn't sleep well. He kept thinking about those scared eyes and those old scars. What had happened to this child? Where was its family? In the greenhouse, Ember lay awake for a long time. The human had been kind. He had shared his food without asking for anything. He had given her shelter and spoken gently. It was so different from before. For the first time in weeks, Ember felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she would be okay. As the moons rose over Verdancia, both the old gardener and the lost dragon child finally drifted into sleep, their lives now unexpectedly connected by one simple act of kindness. The morning sun warmed the greenhouse as Marcus entered with a plate of breakfast. Ember was awake, sitting in the corner and watching the door. When she saw Marcus, she didn't run. That was progress. "Good morning, Ember," Marcus said cheerfully. "I brought scrambled eggs and toast. Fresh eggs from my neighbor's chickens." He set the plate down and sat on his bucket. Ember approached more quickly than yesterday. She ate the breakfast with the same desperate hunger, though slightly slower this time. Marcus noticed she was watching him between bites, as if studying him. "I need to work in the garden today," Marcus said. "You're welcome to stay here where it's safe, or you can come with me if you'd like." After breakfast, Marcus went outside and began his daily routine. He watered the plants, checked for pests, and pulled weeds. He talked to himself as he worked, a habit he'd developed living alone. "These tomatoes are doing well," he said, examining the green fruits. "Another week and they'll be red and ready. The secret is patience and good soil." Marcus heard a soft sound behind him. He turned slowly. Ember had come out of the greenhouse and was standing at the edge of the garden, watching him work. "Hello there," Marcus said warmly. "Decided to join me?" Ember didn't respond, but she took a few steps closer. She watched as Marcus moved between the plants, his movements careful and gentle. Over the next hour, Ember followed Marcus around the garden, staying about 10 feet behind him. She observed everything he did with intense focus. When Marcus sat down to rest, Ember sat down too. "Gardening is about taking care of things," Marcus explained, even though Ember didn't speak. "You give plants what they need: water, sunlight, good soil, protection from harm. In return, they grow strong and healthy. It's a relationship built on care." The days passed in a comfortable pattern. Marcus would bring food 3 times a day. Ember would eat and then follow him around the garden. Slowly, the distance between them grew smaller. By the 4th day, Ember was walking right beside Marcus as he worked. Marcus noticed something wonderful. Ember was starting to help. She would use her small claws to dig holes where Marcus pointed. Her claws were perfect for loosening hard soil without damaging plant roots. When Marcus needed to warm the greenhouse on a cool morning, Ember would breathe gently, her breath creating a perfect temperature for the seedlings. "You're a natural gardener," Marcus said with pride. "Look how carefully you work. You understand that growing things need gentle handling." Ember's scales were beginning to shine brighter. She was gaining weight, looking healthier each day. But she still hadn't made a single sound. Marcus wondered what had happened to silence such a young creature. One afternoon, Marcus sat under a tree with his lunch. Ember sat beside him, closer than ever before. Marcus took out a small notebook and pencil. He drew a simple picture of a flower and showed it to Ember. "This is how I remember what to plant where," he said. "Pictures help when words are hard." Ember's eyes widened with interest. She looked at the pencil, then at Marcus. Carefully, Marcus handed her the pencil. Ember held it awkwardly in her claws. Marcus smoothed out a patch of dirt nearby. "You could draw here too if you wanted. Show me things." Ember stared at the smooth dirt. Then, slowly, she began to draw with her claw. The lines were shaky but clear. She drew a simple shape, a dragon, much larger than herself, then another dragon, similar in size. "Your family?" Marcus asked, gently. Ember nodded. It was the first clear response she'd given. She drew more. Rough shapes that looked like walls or cages, then marks that suggested running, hiding, being afraid. Marcus's heart broke. "You got separated from your family. Someone took you, and you escaped." Ember nodded again. She looked at Marcus with those large eyes, filled with sadness. "I'm so sorry that happened to you," Marcus said softly. "But you're safe now. I promise." That evening, Mrs. Chen from the neighboring farm came to visit. She was a kind elderly woman who often shared vegetables with Marcus. "I heard you have a special guest," she said, looking at Ember with curiosity and concern. "A dragon child, Marcus? Do you know what this could mean?" "I know," Marcus replied. "But look at her, Mrs. Chen. She was starving and scared. What was I supposed to do?" Mrs. Chen studied Ember, who had hidden partially behind Marcus. "You did the right thing," she said finally. "But dragons are powerful people with strong traditions. If her family is looking for her, there could be complications." "Then I'll explain what happened," Marcus said. "I found a hungry child and helped her. That's all." Word spread through the small colonial community. Some people were worried about diplomatic problems with the dragon territories. Dragons and humans had peaceful relations, but they rarely interacted closely. Most colonists had never seen a dragon up close. But when people came to Marcus's farm and saw Ember helping in the garden, saw how gentle she was, how Marcus treated her with such kindness, their fears eased. The colony administrator visited and documented the situation, sending reports to both human and dragon authorities. But no immediate response came. Marcus wasn't worried. His focus was on Ember's healing. Each day, she seemed a little happier. She explored the garden more freely. She even started sleeping in the cottage, in a corner Marcus had prepared with soft blankets. One morning, as they worked together planting new seeds, Ember did something unexpected. She took Marcus's hand gently in her claws and squeezed it softly. It was a gesture of affection, of trust. Marcus smiled, his eyes wet with emotion. "You're going to be okay, Ember. Whatever happens, you're going to be okay." Neither of them knew that at that very moment. A royal dragon fleet had just entered Verdancia's orbit, their sensors finally locating the missing princess they had been desperately searching for across 3 star systems. The peaceful garden days were about to end. Marcus woke to a sound he had never heard before. It was deep and rhythmic, like thunder that wouldn't stop. The walls of his cottage trembled slightly. He sat up quickly, his heart pounding. Through the window, he saw lights in the pre-dawn sky. Not stars. These lights were moving, descending toward his farm. They were massive, casting long shadows across the garden. Marcus rushed outside. What he saw made him freeze in place. Enormous creatures stood around his property, each one as tall as his cottage. They looked like armored lizards with thick legs and long tails. On their backs sat dragon soldiers wearing ceremonial armor that gleamed like polished metal. The soldiers were 3 times the size of Ember, with scales of deep crimson, emerald green, and midnight blue. Large banners flew from poles attached to the creature's armor. The symbols on the banners were unfamiliar to Marcus, but they looked official and important. This was clearly not a casual visit. In the center of the formation stood the largest dragon Marcus had ever seen. His armor was silver and black, decorated with medals and emblems of rank. His eyes were sharp and intelligent, missing nothing. This was a leader, a commander. Marcus's mouth went dry. His hands trembled. He had never been so frightened in his life. The greenhouse door opened. Ember stepped out, drawn by the noise. When she saw the dragons, she stopped completely. Her whole body went rigid. She looked like she might run. Marcus moved quickly, stepping in front of Ember. He knew it was foolish. He was just one human, old and unarmed. These were trained soldiers. But his body moved before his mind could stop it. Ember was under his protection. The large dragon commander stepped forward. Each footstep shook the ground. He looked down at Marcus from his great height, his expression unreadable. "Human," the commander said. His voice was deep and formal. "I am General Thornscale of the Royal Dragon Guard. We are searching for Princess Emberwing, daughter of Queen Scalemere, ruler of the Dragon Imperium. She has been missing for 17 days. The general's eyes moved to Ember, who was trying to hide behind Marcus's legs. "That is Princess Emberwing. Step aside, human." Marcus's heart hammered in his chest, but he didn't move. "She's just a child," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "She's scared." General Thornscale's eyes narrowed. "You admit you have been harboring the princess? For how many days?" 6 days, Marcus said, "but I didn't know she was a princess. I didn't know who she was at all." "You expect me to believe that?" The general's voice grew colder. "A human finds a dragon royal and doesn't realize her value? Where are your demands? Your ransom requests? What leverage are you seeking?" "Leverage?" Marcus felt confused and frightened, but also angry. "She was hiding in my pumpkin patch, starving and terrified. She had scars, old injuries. I gave her food and a place to sleep, that's all." Another dragon soldier spoke up. "General, we tracked the extremist group that kidnapped the princess to a location 40 miles from here. They were planning to use her to disrupt the peace negotiations with the younger species. She must have escaped from them." "Then this human could be working with them," the general said, "holding the princess until terms could be arranged." "No," Marcus said firmly. "I've never hurt her. I've only helped her." "So you claim." General Thornscale moved closer. "Then why does the princess not speak? Why does she not identify herself?" Marcus's anger faded into sadness. "She hasn't spoken since I found her. Not one word, not one sound. Whatever happened to her, it hurt her badly." The general paused. Something in Marcus's voice made him hesitate. He looked at Ember more carefully. The princess was pressed against the human's leg, not trying to reach her rescuers. That was unusual. "Princess Emberwing," the general said in a softer tone. "You are safe now. We have come to take you home to your mother. Come here, please." Ember didn't move. She gripped Marcus's pant leg with one small claw. The general frowned. He moved forward, reaching out. "Princess, we must return you to the palace. Your mother is waiting." Suddenly, Ember made a sound. It was small and desperate, a soft trill that spoke of fear and pleading. It was the first sound she had made since arriving at the farm. Everyone froze. The dragon soldiers looked at each other in surprise. Ember ran into the cottage and emerged moments later with something clutched in her claws. They were the picture cards Marcus had made for her, and drawings she had made in the dirt that Marcus had carefully preserved on paper. She pressed them into General Thornscale's large claws, her movements urgent. The general looked down at the cards. His expression slowly changed as he examined each one. There were pictures of Marcus sharing food with Ember, Marcus teaching her in the garden, Marcus sitting quietly beside her sleeping form. Marcus protecting her from a storm that had frightened her. And there were Ember's drawings, pictures of scary figures, of being trapped, of running away. And then pictures of Marcus, simple drawings that showed kindness, safety, and peace. "Bring the language specialist," the general commanded quietly. A smaller dragon came forward carrying a tablet device. Princess Emberwing suffered severe trauma according to these images. She appears to have been nonverbal since her escape. The human's consistent presence and non-threatening behavior created a safe environment for initial healing. General Thornscale looked at Marcus with new eyes. "You shared your food with her. You didn't know she was royalty." "I knew she was a child who needed help," Marcus said simply. "That's all that mattered." The general was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone present. He bowed his head slightly toward Marcus, a gesture of respect. "I must contact the Queen immediately," he said. "This situation is unusual." He pulled out a crystal that began to glow. Within moments, a holographic image appeared above it. The image showed a dragon so magnificent, so powerful, that Marcus had to look away. Her scales were like flowing gold, and her eyes held the weight of 1,000 years. Queen Scalemere had arrived, and she did not look pleased. The holographic image of Queen Scalemere filled the air above the crystal. Even though she was not physically present, her presence was overwhelming. Marcus felt like he could barely breathe. This was a ruler of an entire empire, a being of immense power and authority. "General Thornscale," the Queen's voice was controlled but filled with emotion. "Is it true? Have you found my daughter?" "Yes, Your Majesty," the general replied, bowing deeply. "Princess Emberwing is here, safe and unharmed. However, the situation is complicated." The Queen's eyes found Ember, who was still pressed against Marcus's leg. "Emberwing, my precious child!" The Queen's voice cracked with emotion. "Come to me. Let me see you properly." Ember looked up at the holographic image of her mother. Tears formed in her eyes, but she didn't move toward the crystal. Instead, she clutched Marcus's leg tighter. The Queen's expression shifted from joy to confusion to concern. "Emberwing, what's wrong? Why don't you speak?" "Your Majesty," General Thornscale said carefully. "The princess has not spoken since we arrived. According to this human, she has been silent for 6 days. We believe the trauma from her kidnapping has affected her ability to communicate." The Queen's eyes blazed. She looked at Marcus with such intensity that he wanted to run. "You, human, what have you done to my daughter?" Marcus forced himself to speak, despite his terror. "Nothing, Your Majesty. I found her in my garden, hungry and scared. I gave her food and shelter. I tried to help her feel safe." "Safe?" The Queen's voice rose. "My daughter was missing for 17 days. She was taken by extremists who wanted to use her as a tool against peace. And you claim you simply found her and helped her?" "Yes," Marcus said simply. "That's exactly what happened." "General, prepare to take the princess into custody," the Queen commanded. "Bring this human as well. He will answer questions at the palace." "No." The word burst from Marcus before he could stop himself. "I mean, Your Majesty, please. Ember is just starting to heal. Moving her suddenly, taking her away from familiar surroundings. It might hurt her recovery." "Ember?" The Queen's tone was dangerous. "You dare to give my daughter a nickname?" I didn't know her real name," Marcus stammered. "She couldn't tell me. So I called her Ember because her scales glowed softly. I'm sorry if that was disrespectful." General Thornscale stepped forward. "Your Majesty, permission to share something." He held up the picture cards and drawings. "The princess has been communicating through images. Perhaps we should see what else she wishes to tell us." The Queen paused. "Show me." The general carefully arranged the cards where the holographic projection could see them. He explained each one, Marcus sharing his food, teaching Ember about plants, sitting with her during a thunderstorm that had frightened her, never asking for anything in return. Then he showed Ember's drawings. The images of her captivity were rough but clear, scary figures surrounding her, dark spaces, fear and pain. Then the drawings changed, simple pictures of Marcus, of the garden, of safety and kindness. The queen studied each image in silence. Her expression slowly transformed from anger to something softer, more thoughtful. "The princess drew these herself?" she asked quietly. "Yes, Your Majesty," the general confirmed. "The human taught her to communicate this way when he realized she couldn't speak." The queen looked at Marcus again, but this time her gaze was different. "You taught my daughter to express herself when words failed her." "I just gave her paper and showed her she could draw," Marcus said. "She did the rest herself. She's very smart." Ember suddenly moved. She picked up one more card that had fallen on the ground. It was a drawing she had made the night before, one Marcus hadn't seen yet. She held it up toward the holographic image of her mother. The drawing showed two figures, a small dragon and a human. They were sitting together in a garden surrounded by plants. Above them, Ember had drawn something that looked like a smile, the sun, warmth. At the bottom, she had scratched words in dragon script, letters she had copied from the banners on the soldiers' armor. The language specialist gasped, "Your Majesty, the princess has written safe and father in our language." The entire assembly went silent. Even the large creatures the soldiers rode seemed to sense the importance of the moment. Queen Scalamir's eyes glistened. "Father?" she whispered. "Emberwing, is this human? Has he been like a father to you?" Ember nodded vigorously. Then she did something remarkable. She made another sound, different from before. It was a soft chirping noise, gentle and musical. She repeated it several times, looking between Marcus and her mother. The language specialist's voice trembled. "Your Majesty, that sound, it's the infant dragon sound for safe guardian. She hasn't made that sound since she was a baby. It's the first sound dragon children make when they recognize someone who protects them." Marcus felt tears running down his face. He hadn't known what Ember's sounds meant, but he understood now. This little dragon child, traumatized and afraid, had found safety with him. She saw him as someone who protected her. The queen was quiet for a very long time. The morning sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the farm. Finally she spoke, and her voice was gentle. "General Thornscale, I am coming to Verdancia myself. Prepare for my arrival. I must meet this human gardener who gave my daughter something I feared she might never feel again. Safety and trust." The general bowed. "Yes, Your Majesty. We will await your arrival." The holographic image faded. General Thornscale looked at Marcus with an expression that might have been respect. "The queen will be here within the hour. I suggest you prepare yourself, human. You are about to meet the most powerful dragon in the known galaxy." Marcus looked down at Ember, who was still holding his leg. "I don't need to prepare," he said quietly. "I just need to make sure Ember knows she's still safe." Ember chirped softly again, and for the first time since the soldiers arrived, she seemed less afraid. The hour that would change everything was about to begin. The hour passed in tense silence. The dragon soldiers remained in formation around Marcus's farm, but they seemed less threatening now. Some of them watched Ember with soft expressions, clearly relieved to have found their missing princess. Marcus sat on the porch steps with Ember beside him. He held her small claw in his hand, trying to keep her calm. "Your mother is coming," he said gently. "She loves you very much. Everything will be okay." Ember leaned against him, making soft chirping sounds. She was nervous but no longer terrified. Then the sky darkened, not with clouds, but with an enormous ship descending from orbit. It was beautiful and terrifying at once, covered in golden panels that caught the sunlight. The ship landed in the field beyond Marcus's garden, with surprising grace for something so massive. A ramp extended from the ship. Dragons in ceremonial armor lined both sides, creating a pathway. And then she appeared. Queen Scalamere was even more magnificent in person than in the hologram. She was twice the size of General Thornscale, her golden scales shimmering with each movement. She wore a crown of crystallized fire that seemed to float above her head. Her presence was so powerful that Marcus felt his knees weaken. But what struck Marcus most was her face. Despite her majesty and power, Queen Scalamere's eyes held the same expression he had seen in countless parents. Fear, mixed with desperate hope, the look of someone who had almost lost everything precious to them. Ember saw her mother and went completely still. Then suddenly, she ran. She launched herself forward, wings spreading slightly to help her move faster. "Mother!" The word burst from Ember's throat, the first clear word she had spoken in weeks. Queen Scalamere dropped to her knees, catching her daughter in her arms. The sound that came from both of them was unlike anything Marcus had ever heard, a harmonized dragon song filled with joy, relief, and love. It echoed across the valley, beautiful and heartbreaking at once. Marcus watched with tears streaming down his face. This was what Ember had needed all along, to be reunited with her family, to feel that complete safety that only a parent could provide. The Queen held Ember for a long time, checking her carefully, touching her scales, making sure she was truly unharmed. Ember spoke rapidly in dragon language, her voice growing stronger with each word. The trauma hadn't stolen her voice forever. It had only needed the right moment to return. Finally, Queen Scalamere looked up at Marcus. She gently set Ember down and walked toward the porch. Each step was measured and deliberate. When she reached Marcus, she did something that made every dragon present gasp. She knelt down, bringing herself to eye level with the human. "Marcus the gardener," she said, her voice rich with emotion. "My daughter tells me you found her starving and wounded. You shared your food without knowing who she was. You gave her shelter and asked for nothing in return. You taught her to communicate when fear had stolen her voice. You protected her and made her feel safe." "Yes, Your Majesty," Marcus managed to say. "But I only did what anyone should do for a child in need." "No," the Queen said firmly. "Not anyone would have done this. Many would have seen opportunity. A dragon royal to be ransomed or used for political gain. Many would have been afraid and turned her away. You saw a frightened child and responded with pure kindness." The Queen reached into her armor and pulled out a medal unlike any Marcus had ever seen. It glowed with an inner light, shaped like a flame. "I name you Keeper of the First Flame, an honor reserved for those who protect young lives at great personal risk. This title carries weight in every dragon territory across the galaxy." Marcus stared at the medal. "Your Majesty, I also grant you land, wealth, and a title of nobility in the Dragon Imperium," the Queen continued. "You will want for nothing for the rest of your life." "Your Majesty," Marcus said carefully, "I'm deeply honored, but I don't need wealth or titles. I have my garden. I have everything I need." The Queen tilted her head, studying him with fascination. "You refuse rewards from a dragon queen?" "I would never refuse your kindness," Marcus said quickly. "But I helped Ember because she needed help, not for reward. If I could ask for one thing, though." "Name it." Could I maybe still teach Ember about gardening, if she wants to learn, when she's ready?" Marcus looked at Ember, who was watching hopefully. "Only if that's okay with you, of course." Queen Scalamere was silent for a moment. Then she laughed, a warm, genuine sound that seemed impossible from such a powerful being. "You refuse wealth and land but ask to continue teaching my daughter about vegetables?" Growing things is important, Marcus said simply. It teaches patience, care, and responsibility, and I think Ember enjoys it. Ember chirped excitedly and nodded, speaking rapidly to her mother in dragon language. The queen's expression grew soft. My daughter says you are the kindest person she has ever met. She says your garden is a place of peace and healing. She says you are her garden father. Marcus wiped his eyes. She's a wonderful student. Queen Skelemere stood, making a decision. Very well. I declare that Verdantia will become a protected cultural exchange zone. Dragons and humans will be invited to come here to learn from each other. And you, Marcus, will be the official ambassador of this exchange, if you accept. Ambassador? Marcus looked stunned. But I'm just a gardener. You are proof that peace begins with simple kindness, the queen said. You showed my daughter that humans see people, not politics. You accomplished what diplomats have struggled with for years. You built a bridge of genuine care between our species. She turned to address everyone present. Let it be known across all territories. The human Marcus saved Princess Emberwing not because of who she was, but because of who he is. This is the foundation upon which true alliance is built. Ember walked to Marcus and pressed something into his hand. It was a scale from her shedding, iridescent and warm. For you, Garden Father, she said clearly, her voice still weak but growing stronger. So you remember me. I could never forget you, Marcus said, hugging her gently. As the royal delegation prepared to leave, with promises that Ember would return to continue her gardening lessons, Marcus stood in his garden holding the precious scale. Messages were already coming in from other colonies, from dragon territories, from news services wanting to hear about his diplomatic methods. Marcus chuckled and returned to his tomatoes. They needed watering. Mrs. Chen came running up the path. Marcus, you're famous! The whole galaxy is talking about you. That's nice, Marcus said, checking his plants. But these tomatoes won't wait for fame. They need attention now. He hung Ember's scale by his door, where it caught the sunlight and glowed warmly. Sometimes, Marcus thought as he worked in his garden, the most extraordinary things really do grow from the smallest seeds. A simple meal shared with a hungry child had planted seeds of peace that would grow across the stars, and that was exactly as it should be.